Welcome back to the reading of The Evolution of Calpurnia Tate. Today we are reading chapter 14, The Short Hoe. Nature cares nothing for appearances except insofar as they may be used to any being. I continued to hover over the plant with Granddaddy. To my great relief, it thrived under our tender care, first stretching for the light and then trailing along the windowsill. Granddaddy called it the proband. He told me that's what you called the first of a kind. Every day, I took it outside for a few minutes to expose it to the bees for pollination. I was vigilant with my duties and shooed away all grasshoppers and other plant eaters that dared to venture too close. I turned my attention to other experiments of my own devising, anything to keep me away from the Christmas socks. The cotton harvest was looming, so I considered the issue of the short hoe, which still raged through our part of the world. Granddaddy had taught me that the best way to learn about something was to undergo the experience or perform the experiment yourself. And he had given Father the opportunity to study the short hoe as a youngster, making him spend a day toiling with it. In my new campaign of activity to hasten time, I took one of the long hoes from the tool shed. We had no short ones on the property. I figured that if I held it halfway down, it would be the same thing as working with a short one. I walked out to our closest row of cotton, a good 50 yards from the back porch. Mother said that a proper lady always had a lawn and a garden. Women who were not proper ladies had cotton planted right up to their windowsills. The bolls were swelling on the plants, performing their miraculous transformation from hard green pods into fluffy white spheres. Cash money coming right out of the ground. I swung my hoe. Oh, it was hard work, let me tell you. And the weather wasn't even that hot. And I didn't have to do it hour after hour for my daily bread. And I wasn't an old person with rheumatism like I'd seen in some fields. All these things were going through my head when I heard a shriek like a screech owl coming from the house. I nearly jumped out of my skin. "What are you doing?" Viola charged at me from the back porch. I had never in my life seen her so upset. "I'm chopping cotton. What does it look like?" "Lord Almighty, you get inside at once before anyone sees. Jesus, help me." She grabbed the hoe from my hand and shoved me toward the house hard. "What's the matter with you?" she hissed. "Have you completely lost your senses? Playing like you're a Negro." "I wanted to see what it's like, that's all. Granddaddy told me about—" "I don't want to hear about that old man. That old man losing his mind, and now you losing yours." She muttered and prodded me all the way back to the house. Little girl chopping cotton, white girl chopping cotton, Tate girl chopping cotton. Lord help me. We made it to the safety of the kitchen with her looking around in alarm, griping at me the whole way. "Give me that pinafore," she said, snatching it off me. "You go get a new one right now. Your mama take a fit, she see you. Don't you tell anybody. I mean it." "Why not? Why are you so mad? I was only trying it out." Jesus, God, give me strength. "Don't be so mad at me, Viola. I gotta sit down for a minute." "Here," I said, "I'll get you a glass of lemonade." She sat at the kitchen table and fanned herself with a cardboard fan while I went to the pantry where I spotted a stone pot of hard cider. I hesitated and then drew her some of that instead. She looked like she needed it. "This will make you feel better," I said. She drank it right down and stared off into space, fanning away. I brought her another glass and she sighed. It seemed like lots of people I'd been around lately were either drinking or sighing. "Callie," she said at last, "somebody could have seen you, girl." "So?" "Your mama got plans for you. You know that? Just like last week, she says she wants you to come out. And now this. No, sir. Can't have no debutante chopping cotton." "Me? Come out? What for?" "'Cause you a Tate girl. Your daddy owns cotton. Your daddy owns the gym. Granddaddy still owns it, I think. You know what I mean, Miss Smarty. And don't you want to be a debutante?" I'm not sure what all that means, but if it means being like that drip that Harry brought home that time, then no. That was a drippy lady for sure. But that ain't what it means. It means lots of fancy parties and lots of young gentlemen coming around. It means having lots of beaux. What do I want with lots of beaux? You say that now, but later on. No, really, Viola, what's the point? It would please your mamma. That's the point. Oh, Miss Selfish, she said. I am not selfish, I retorted. She went on, make you a young lady of society instead of a scarecrow. I ignored this last ungracious remark and thought for a minute. Did mother come out? They put her name down for it, but she never did. Why not? Viola looked at me. You should ask her. The war? I said, puzzled. Viola nodded. But it was over by then. Mother must have been, I counted on my fingers. There was no money left, that's all, said Viola. And then her daddy died of typhus, and that was the end of that. So I have to come out because she missed her turn? I'm telling you, you got to ask her yourself. Go get cleaned up. You a mess. I got to rest my heart. It's beating like a kitten. Lord help me. I left her fanning herself. My mother had got one girl out of 7 tries at it. I guess I wasn't exactly what she'd had in mind, a dainty daughter to help her bail against the rising tide of the rough and tumble boyish energy that always threatened to engulf the house. It hadn't occurred to me that she'd been hoping for an ally and didn't get one. So I didn't like to talk patterns and recipes and pour tea in the parlor. Did that make me selfish? Did it make me odd? Worst of all, did it make me a disappointment? I could probably live with being thought selfish or odd, but a disappointment, that was another matter, a hard matter. I tried not to think about this, but it tailed me about the house all afternoon like a bothersome, bad-smelling dog demanding attention. I sat in my room and looked out at the trees and paid the matter some mind, turning it this way and that. I hadn't intended to be this way. Could I be blamed for my nature? Could the leopard change her spots? And if so, what were my spots? It all seemed so muddled. I came up with no conclusions, but I did get a middling headache. Maybe I needed some Lydia Pinkhams, like mother. Maybe I was more like her than I thought. Would coming out as a debutante be so bad? Maybe I wouldn't mind it so much, eventually. Meanwhile, I would have to find out more about it. Granddaddy had taught me that the important questions could not be answered without the best scholarship you could lay your hands on, along with plenty of time to weigh and measure the alternatives. I had another 6 or 7 years to think about it. That might be enough. I didn't know anyone who could tell me about such things except mother, but if I asked her, wouldn't that just get her hopes up, hopes that might have to be dashed later on? My head ached, and my neck started to itch. Hives again. The next morning, I found mother outside examining the rose in the kitchen garden, a wide straw hat shading her face and a pair of white cotton gloves on her hands, following her own dictum that a lady always hid her hands and face from the sun. I approached her cautiously in case Viola had told her of my apparently shameful public experiment, but there was no special alarm in her eyes, no more than usual. Where's your bonnet? Mother called out. Go inside and get it. I ran back inside for it. There was no point in starting the conversation off on the wrong foot. I grabbed it from the peg inside the back door and went out again. That's better, she said. Are you coming to help me with the flowers? I wanted to ask you something, I said. Viola told me you were supposed to come out when you were a girl, but that you didn't get to. Is that true? A shadow of something, surprise, annoyance, regret maybe, passed over her face. She stooped and clipped a Cherokee rose. Yes, that's true. So what happened? The war ruined us. It ruined many families. People were starving. Making one's debut would have been unseemly. But you met father anyway, she smiled. I did. I was one of the lucky ones. Your Aunt Aggie wasn't so lucky. My mother's sister, Agatha, lived unmarried and alone in Harwood in a house that smelled of cats and mildew. So you didn't need to be a debutante, I said, pulling a stray weed. No, I guess I didn't. But lots of girls still do. She looked at me. I couldn't avoid the question any longer, so I squared up to it. Do I have to come out? You're the only daughter, Calpurnia. I didn't want to be rude and point out that she hadn't answered the question. Well, what does it mean exactly? Mother's eyes lit up. It means that a girl from a good family has become a young lady and is ready to be introduced into society, that she is ready to take her appointed place, that she can be introduced to young men from good families. It means cotillions and entertainments and a new gown for each one. How long does it last? I said. A year. A whole year! I didn't much care for the sound of that. And then what happens? She looked confused. What do you mean? You said it lasts for a year, and then what? Well, usually the young lady has found a husband by that time. So it's a lot of fancy parties to marry off girls? Mother clucked. Goodness, I wouldn't put it that way. Why not? I thought. There was no disguising it. Mother? Yes, dear? So do I have to come out? Her face fell. I quickly added, do you want me to come out? She studied me. Callie, I think there's lots of time to think about it, but yes, I would be glad if you had the opportunity I missed. Many young girls would be glad of the chance. What does father think? It sounds expensive, a new gown and all every time. She looked disapproving. One doesn't speak of money like that. It isn't done. Your father is an excellent provider. I'm sure he would be proud to present you. So there lay the matter, for now. Later, it occurred to me that I could ask Granddaddy his thoughts about this, but then I realized I didn't need to. I could just imagine his opinion on the matter. And that is the end of chapter 14.